Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order, please. Before we start the meeting, I want to say something. It was 2 weeks ago today that we lost our colleague and our friend, Joy Brotherton. And Joy was not only my colleague, but she was my best friend. And we're all going to miss her. We're going to miss her laughter and her blue eyes, her spunk, her passion, her determination, and her kindness, and her dedication, and she was dedicated to the citizens of District 4. I ask that we please honor Joy's memory and keep Joy and her family in our thoughts and our prayers. I've been told that there's a memorial scheduled for the public on June 19th. It will be at the Lee Williams High School here in Kingman. I don't have the time, but when we get more information, I'll make sure to let everybody know. This morning, I have asked Pastor Jack Thompson from Joy's Church, the First Pentecostal Church of God, to give our invocation. Pastor, if you'll all rise.
I'd like to share with you first a thought on God's promise. Our precious Lord promised us that an easy road in life, but He did promise that He'd help us face the strife. He never promised us that we would never suffer grief, but He promised He'd be with us to help provide relief. He never promised us that we'd never have a broken heart, but He promised us He'd be with us and help us with an aching part. One thing we know about His promises, that they never fail. And in Joy's life, He promised that He would lead and guide her and direct her path, and our God did that for her. She lived a life of greatness, and she fulfilled and followed the steps in the footsteps of her Lord. She did a great job in serving her community and was a blessing to all that she came in contact with. We will surely miss her. Let us pray. Father, we thank You for Your greatness and Your promises that You give us. I ask You today in this business meeting, God, that You would give great wisdom, God, to these young men and women as they serve their community. We thank You for Your promises that You have caused in our life, our endeavors. Bless this day and bless Your people. In Your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Supervisor Watson.
You'll follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you'll just bear with me for one moment. I'm looking for... Okay, I need a motion to call for an executive session to be held on June 16th, 2014 at 9 a.m. for discussion and consultation with legal counsel in accordance with ARS 38-431.03.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Are there any committee and/or legislative reports this morning?
Supervisor Johnson.
Madam Chair, attended the Arizona-Utah Economic Development Coalition meeting. We had reports from the new mine owner up there, also over the futures of uranium mining, how it's going about in the rest of the United States. We also had an update on our lawsuit that we have going through a federal court where Mohave County is a part of that. I also attended the Western Interstate Region meeting in Alaska. I'm sure Supervisor Watson will probably want to go over some of the classes and that he attended. It was a good conference, especially regarding PILT, keeping our people together, the taking of lands. We're obviously not the only state that has land grabs going on. You probably saw while we were up there, I think New Mexico had a large land grab. The interesting part is the animosity that these states are now having towards the federal government. I mean, it's really coming to the top now. It's almost actually scary, some of the statements that are being made by elected people in office. Supervisor Watson probably has more on what he attended.
Thank you, Supervisor Johnson. Yes, and we did attend the Western Interstate Region Conference for the National Association of Counties. It was held in Anchorage, May 21st to the 23rd. Main items on the topic were MAP 21, the cornerstone of surface transportation projects, the long-term funding for PILT and the secure rural schools. And there were many other important issues that were discussed at the breakout sessions and the study sessions. I attended with Supervisor Johnson the Joint Public Land Steering Committee and Environmental Energy Land Use Steering Committee, in which we're both members. That was on Wednesday, May 21st in the AM, and the Thursday AM, the Public Lands History and Perspectives from Bureau of Land Management, presented by Cynthia Moses Ned. She's the liaison from the state, for the state and local government from the BLM. She was rather shocked and surprised at the attitude of a number of the folks that were attending there. There was real heated discussion about the role of BLM, the federal government, in the western lands. Those topics concerned the Environmental Protection Agency, FLIPMA, 1934 Taylor Grazing Act, and NEPA, the multiple use item. In the PM, the County Solutions Roundtable was about the Endangered Species Act and the repeal or the modification of the Equal Access to Justice. And as presented by Dr. Matthew Cronin, who is a research professor at the University of Alaska in genetics, covered the myths, politics, and misrepresentations of the environmental sector to the West. Just as an example, and one that he brought up to us, was prior to the Alaskan oil pipeline, there were fewer than 5,000 caribou in that area. Now that there are people up there and protecting that herd, it's now over 75,000. So don't for a minute believe some of the items that are brought forth to you by the environmentalists that a number of the activities are negligent or improper for the wildlife up there. From what I could see, it was, and I did get a chance to travel a little bit after the meeting, that there were a number of issues that the Alaskans up there face, and they don't really have the exposure in Washington, D.C. for those people to understand making the policy of the lands in which they live. On Friday AM, we had the moderator was Dr. Cope. He's a veterinarian. He's also a county supervisor, and he's also the managing director on the NACO for the managing of the wildlife horses and burros. And let me remind you that the wild horses and burros are feral horses and burros. The probable population of those are 150,000 in the western states. This year, only 2,300 will be removed to the Midwest for holding areas. 26,700 should have been the target, but there was not enough funding nor political energy in order to do anything different. Just as a reminder, it was brought up that that herd of 150,000 animals will increase every 4 years. The cost of adoption of each one of the animals is $8,000. The lifetime cost of each animal held in the holding areas is $46,000. There were a number of people that attended the Solutions Committee for the wolf and the wild horse issues, and a person from Arizona on that committee will be Barry Wooler from Apache County. He'll be able to serve on that committee and advise for further recommendations. These will be topics that will be presented at the annual conference in New Orleans, and a number of resolutions will be brought forth at that time. Thank you. It was a wonderful trip and very educational.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, Supervisor Watson brought up something that I'd forgotten about. Alaska is feeling the same effects as we are, although they got their oil pipeline going ahead of time. The trans pipeline that they put in 1977, which was they've been trying since '68 to try to get this in. We had, if you remember, the oil embargo of '73. It started out at 2 million barrels a day. It's now down to around 500,000 barrels a day. It's 25% of what it originally was, and it's because the government is not opening up the other oil reserves that are up in Alaska, fill that pipeline up, and could shut down because they just don't have enough flow to go. So we have all these natural resources that are sitting in the ground. We have a way to transport that safely down here, as it has been since, what, 1977. But yet the government continues to shut down the mineral resources that we have in our ground.
Okay, is that all? Okay, I have a small report to make, but before that, I have to apologize to Supervisor Moss, who's on the phone. Are you there?
You don't have to apologize for me to Hildy, but I'll accept the cash.
Okay, all right. Well, you know, pipe in whenever you can. I won't forget about you.
Okay.
Okay, I went to a meeting last week down in Phoenix, and last session, the state legislature gave ECO, which is the Association of Eastern Counties, $25,000 to start putting together a plan for the transfer of public lands. And it all goes hand in hand with what the other supervisors were talking about, all the problems. And one of the issues, well, all the issues are detail issues of how we would do this. You know, it's nice to say we're going to take back our public lands, but the devil is in the details, and what we have to start somewhere. So this committee was put together to start addressing those details, and I'm on that committee, as are some state senators, state representatives, other supervisors. I see my role as keeping it as local as possible. So in the months ahead, we're going to be meeting every month, and I'll be reporting back to you about the progress. But again, all of these issues that you just heard, they're all related. It all goes to our public lands issue. And Arizona is on board, Mohave County is on board with the American Lands Council in acceptance, and we are proponent of transferring our public lands back to the state and local. So if anybody wants to know more about that, you can go to the American Lands Council website and learn more. I suggest you do, because you're going to be hearing a lot about it in the weeks, months, and years to come. Okay, is there anything else from supervisors? Do we have a county administrator's report?
I have no report today, Madam Chairman.
Okay. And there are no minutes to approve this meeting. So now we move on to the call to public. Those wishing to address the board at the call to the public regarding matters not on the board agenda must fill out and submit to the clerk a call to the public request to speak form located in the back of the room prior to the meeting. Action taken as a result of public comments will be limited to responding to criticism, referral to staff, or placing a matter on a future agenda. Comments are restricted to items not on the regular agenda, with the exception of the consent agenda, and must relate to matters within the jurisdiction of the board. All right, we have several people signed up for call to public. We will start with Harley Pettit.
Supervisors, my name's Harley Pettit, and I'm a citizen of the county of Mohave.
Can I have your address, please, for the record?
I'm 3787 Dakota Road. What I'd like to have on as an agenda item is the aquifers and Red Lake and Jim Rhodes farms. The concern to me is, of course, the aquifer. And we went over this with him before in the past when he was going to do a planned community out there. The concern about water was a major issue. There was a solar farm he wanted to put out there, and instead of air cool, he wanted to water cool it, and it was going to possibly jeopardize our water supply. This is no different, this farming. And even in today's paper, they're talking about a BLM land swap. Well, somehow along the line, I have a feeling that we control our state and county land and its destiny. The BLM was set up to oversee property and make sure that it got legally transferred to private owners. They're not really supposed to be the owners of the land. We're a state. We got accepted into the union, but this is our property as part of the state. So this land swapping is, of course, the BLM has changed it from its original purpose to what it is now. If it was original purpose, they'd be out of business and they're going to perpetuate their own jobs, so they've managed to keep the BLM alive, even past its intended use. Like I say, we've had questionable dealings with Jim Rhodes before in the county. They're smart business moves on his part, but they're kind of self-serving, and they have been shown, I believe, to be a detriment in some cases to the county and the surrounding area. I'll time that just about right. I appreciate your listening to me, and I hope we can get this on an agenda item so we can talk about it and get into more of the responsibilities we have as a county and as a state, and then how they refer to the federal government and the BLM. But I think we do control our destiny, and we should have a say. I want to say eminent domain because I can't think of another way to put it. But these are aquifers that feed several thousand people and not one farming institution. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up, you want this as Jean Bishop. I have a call of public, but I also have item number 25. Which you want to do the call of public or wait until we address 25? You want to do call of public? 25. Right, so you want to do it that way? Okay, Jean Bishop.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, Supervisors. It's a mystery as to how my name got on the call to public, but
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, this.
Oh, is there another
My
Jean Bishop?
error. I'm
Okay, well, I
sorry.
just
Go
wanted to
sit
say good
down.
morning to you all, and I'll take my seat.
I apologize. I did not
This
know
is
there
my
was another
twin, Jean
Jean. I
Bishop.
see. Okay. Well, you learn something new every day.
Good morning,
Okay.
Madam
Hello,
Chair.
Mr. Bishop.
Yes,
Thank
good-
you.
Madam Chair, distinguished members, nice guests of our county. I just have some questions, really. Item 25, which is not really up for public, so I appreciate you lending me some time here. Try as I couldn't find out exactly where this well was going. There's no diagrams or drawings that I could find online. And I'm a little concerned that it might set a precedent because it looks like it's avoiding consideration under the Arizona Water Board and the ACC. And this is being put in for potential future business expansion. Are there businesses already in mind for the water use? Because this is about 1.4 million gallons of water a day, a substantial amount. I'm not even too sure which aquifer it's in. So those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Stephen Hess.
Good morning. My name is Stephen Hess. I live at 5038 North Silver Sands in Fort Mohave. My concern is there's a public hearing on the 16th of June reference to fire restrictions, changing, I believe it's ordinance 2013-14. I've been the camp director, program director at Camp Levy and Wallapies for the last 13 years. I consider that my mountain. I said I've been up there. We have this year about 110 boys going to be showing up to camp on Saturday. In the past, we've had fire restrictions imposed on us halfway through camp where we can't use propane, can't have fires. That's a primitive camp, and the kids have to cook their own food. And my concern is, I understand we're on fire restrictions. The youth of Mohave County look forward to going to Camp Levy. They look forward to being up in the mountains instead of being at home playing video games or getting in trouble and causing problems within the cities. I would ask that if it does come down to fire restrictions, that we're still allowed to have camp, that we will not do any campfires. But please allow us to use propane and run camp. I was up in Alaska last year in July when we had the Dean Peak fire. And the word that I got through text and phone calls was that it started in the middle of Camp Levy, and Camp Levy had burned down. I'm glad that it wasn't in camp. We would like to work with the county supervisors, county engineer, administrator, emergency management to increase our fire safety up there. Supervisor Moss was up there last week with me. We went through camp. I showed him a couple areas of concern. We've got an aspen grove. We've got a lot of dead trees. Let's go up and build slash piles, build a fire break, tie it into Pine Lake. We are willing to work with the county. But we just need to have camp this year. The boys pay $80 to go to camp. With the late date now, if we have to change and they have to go to another camp, they're going to have to pay upwards of $180 to $200 more. So I just, please let us have camp. Thank you.
Is there something can we talk about this through staff? I want to get all the details on it.
Madam Chairman, I should be able to provide you with that information. I did meet briefly with Byron, and at least currently for this coming weekend, there is no plan to shut down and not allow the camping up there on Camp Levy. Also, we had a discussion regarding the air rifles. I think that was a concern that you had, that the Boy Scouts will be allowed to do their marksmanship up there on the hill in a controlled area and away from the hikers that access that facility. But I think the concern that there might be, and we don't know that right now, but the concern that there might be is that fire restrictions are put in place, and they could be very stringent depending on the fuel moisture content up there on the mountain. And that's a scientific determination, and we will be enacting certain restrictions based on that.
But as of today, it's open today.
And I don't see Byron out there, but as of today, my conversation with Byron is that no, the camp in the mountain is not closed down.
Okay. And Mr. House, thank you for coming in, and we'll be in touch with you and make sure that at least you know everything that's going on.
Thank you, and would invite the supervisors to come up during camp and see what the youth of Mohave County do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, that's all I have signed up for call to public. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Okay, seeing none, I close the call to public. Off to the consent agenda. The consent agenda today, items 6 through 33, item 5 has been pulled. Will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion minus any items pulled for discussion. Are there any items I need to pull?
Supervisor Johnson?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I need to pull item 13.
13? Okay. Anyone else? I said 5 was pulled. Alrighty, so we're voting on items 6 through 33.
Number 10.
Number 10?
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to approve items 6 through 33 minus 10 and 13.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair, if I could,
Yes?
just to make sure my hearing was proper, it was item 13, 1-3, that was the exception. Is that correct?
Yes, item 13.
Great, thank you.
Okay. One more time? Do we have that motion on? Do we have a second?
We have motion second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carried. Item 10,
Yes, I'd like to make a motion for discussion on item number 10.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 10.
Item number 10 has to do with zoning use permit, and is actually in Supervisor Moss's district. May want to invite Supervisor Moss to make some comments before I go any further.
Okay, so I'm just going to read this real fast so people know. It's the adoption of Board of Supervisor Resolution Number 2014-078. It's a zoning use permit on Assessor's Parcel Number 208-04-026 for a secondary residence in a general zone in the Yucca vicinity west of the Yucca Frontage Road between First Avenue and Gandalf Way, Mohave County. The Commission recommended approval by unanimous vote and added a limitation that after 12 months it will be reviewed if there is a reason to review it. That being said, if there is full compliance, then there is no reason to review it again. And that was from Development Services, sent that over. So,
If I could, Madam Chair and Supervisor Watson, I have no difficulty with this issue as long as that 12-month condition is included within it.
Supervisor Moss, have you had the opportunity to look at the property? I know you like to go out and kick the rocks. And
I have never personally seen the property.
I've received information and a photocopy of the property, and I'd like to make a motion this morning to at least table the item until our next meeting for you to have the opportunity to go take a look at the property.
I would not mind that at all, Supervisor Watson. If there's a concern that you think I should look at, I'd be more than glad to do so. The next meeting will not be sufficient as I do not return to town until the 24th.
Okay, then
oh, I don't know. They just told me to post.
I'll take that under consideration and make that motion then to, would 60 days be enough?
It'd be more than sufficient. Thank you.
Okay. Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to table this item for at least 60 days in order for Supervisor Moss to go take a look at this property.
Okay.
Second.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion continued. Now, number 13. Okay, thanks. Sitting as the Board of Directors for the Mohave County Flood Control District, approve a job order from McCormick Construction under existing job order contract 13-PS-08, job number 2219-0414-02, and authorize the Director of Development Services to issue the notice to proceed to perform maintenance work for the Mohave County Flood Control District Drainage Infrastructure Maintenance Program for Parcel A drainage easement at Mesa Vista subdivision in the Fort Mohave area for a not-to-exceed fee of $65,882.05. The project costs will be paid by Mohave County Flood Control District funds.
And Madam Chair, I only pulled this item so I would avoid voting on it as there's a potential conflict.
Okay.
Okay.
Have a motion?
I'll make a motion for the approval item number 13.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Down to our public hearings. I'm going to open a public hearing on number 34. Discussion and possible action regarding the adoption of Board of Supervisor Resolution Number 2014-080, zoning use permit on Assessor's Parcel Number 225-43-023 for a secondary residence in an AR agricultural residential 1-acre minimum lot size zone in the South Mohave Valley vicinity, west side of, Harkahala Drive, did I say that right? Between Jerome Avenue and Paul Road, Mohave County, Arizona, and the Commission recommended approval by unanimous vote. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this item? 34? Hearing none, I close the public hearing.
Make a motion to approve item number 34.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Open public hearing, item number 35, discussion and possible action for the Mohave County Flood Control District, adoption of the fiscal year 15 environmental health fee schedule to be effective July 1st, 2014. Anyone wish to speak to this? Hearing none, I close public hearing.
Madam Chair, I make a motion for discussion.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Supervisor Moss?
I have two concerns regarding the fee schedule, and let me first say that I do applaud public health efforts to be flexible when it comes for the food permits for vendors who are only working for between 1 and 5 days, for example. I do believe their heart's in the right place and they are trying to do the right thing. I do have, I guess, two general areas of concern. In many counties in my research, because I've had my staff working on this for a bit, there are actually waivers, a waiver process available for events where they're only going to make $50 to $100 to $150. Like, for example, the Kiwanis did at Lowe's in Bullhead City a few months ago, but they have to spend $45 in the hopes of making $50 or $45 or $100. It really makes no sense for them to donate their time and material for that sort of fundraiser. So I really think there needs to be a waiver process and a waiver form for nonprofits to apply, which would apply to certain small events so they don't have to basically give up all their profit to the government and defeat the purpose of not putting it back into the community. The second concern that I have is looking through the various categories, I saw nothing which really takes into account these small church-driven food kitchens, food pantries, these small nonprofits who are trying to do the right thing. And I'll give you an example with the Golden Shores Baptist Church, who started a food kitchen. My understanding is they were roughly $700 or more in fees before they served their first meal. And their first meal to the poor of their community runs like roughly $1.50 because they get a lot of stuff donated and whatnot. So basically 400 meals that could have gone to the needy went to the government. That was the cost of doing business. And I would like to see some reduced fee schedule in place for nonprofit food kitchens because they are doing an extremely valuable public service, and we really should not be burdening them more than we absolutely need to do.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Well, that's a noble thought by Supervisor Moss. I believe we're in the business to enforce the health laws, and we have to. We've made our departments, such as the health department, be revenue neutral. They can only charge what it costs. They still have to go out and inspect. There's a cost to the county. If the nonprofits don't pick it up, then the rest of the taxpayers have to pick it up. I believe if they want a license, then they pay the fees like everybody else.
And I understand Supervisor Johnson's comment. This is really the issue, though. It's really a two-sided issue here, in my view. One, I really don't believe it costs $400 to $500 to go out and inspect the food kitchen. I mean, they're not lawyers or doctors that we're sending out there. So while it may be revenue neutral as a global matter, it seems to me an awful lot of the cost is being put on to retailers as a net matter, and then we're taking these food kitchens and we're treating them as if they are retailers and not nonprofits who are trying to give back to the community. We are overburdening them by treating a food kitchen or a snack bar at a booster club is running. We're making them pay essentially the exact same fee as Circle K will pay, and they're not in the same ballpark. And when it comes to the Kiwanian clubs and whatnot, and the Rotary clubs and the Lions doing a 1-hour hot dog event where they're hoping to make $100, charging them $45 seems to be counterproductive.
Okay. We have Patty Mead here. Can you come up? So what I'm hearing is that it's the same fee. So if a soup kitchen or let's go for a nonprofit has an event, they're paying the same amount as a, okay, so she's, just so you know, Supervisor Moss, she's shaking her head no.
Chairwoman
Good.
Angus.
If she sees the fee schedule now and she can tell me the two different fees, I'd be glad to look at them.
Chairwoman Angus, Supervisor Moss, Supervisor Watson, and Supervisor Johnson, I believe that the temporary food permit for nonprofits is $45 versus the $95 for a regular business. And that is, we did a short survey of the other counties that did respond. Gene Hepler worked with CSA, and it looks like one of the only other counties that does provide a discount is Coconino, and they provide a discount of $75 for nonprofits. So ours is less than that. We would certainly be willing to consider this if the board directs us to do that.
I have three rebuttals or comments or follow-ups to that, if I could, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
One, I'm not talking about the temporary food permits the temporary food permits don't seem they would fit with a food kitchen, which is more or less in business year-round. So my earlier comment on that point is they are paying essentially the same fee as a Circle K. They're not a temporary operation. Am I wrong about that, Director Meade?
No, I don't believe you are.
Okay. So they are not retailers of food, but in the circumstance of the food kitchen, they are being charged the same rate, and I think that's wrong. Because one is a heavily, when we, as Supervisor Johnson said, made this a revenue neutral scale. We essentially said retailers pay more than anyone else, and we're lumping the food kitchens. I don't think we intended to say this, but this is the practical consequence. We're going to treat the food kitchens as if they're a retailer.
Okay.
The second thing is when it comes to the fee waivers, and I'm sorry, I'm in Pennsylvania, I don't have my file in front of me. I saw more than just $75 in Coconino County. There was quite a few counties that had reduced fees, and they also had waivers for the smaller events, and I think it's something we should be considering.
Okay, so we have a couple of issues. So is it correct, are those facts correct that the soup kitchens that the food banks that operate year-round pay, that you're saying, Supervisor Moss, they pay the same as a for-profit organization?
Yes, they do. I agree.
They do?
Yes.
If I may.
Oh, good.
If I may,
Yes.
Chairman Angus. The reason these fees are instituted are to recoup the costs that are there for inspection. And this is not just a government bureaucracy to take your money. This is for the protection, health, safety, and welfare of all our citizens involved in food consumption. And while I think it's great to have the $45 temporary fee, that is probably the lowest we can possibly go due to the fact that even these temporary facilities still require inspection. Is that correct?
Correct.
So possibly Supervisor Moss could come back at a later date with further clarification on what he would like to do, but I think we need to make sure that, number one, we protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public, and number two, that we're just recouping our costs, and that's the intent of this move here on the fee schedule. So I'd like to make a motion to adopt today's fee schedule as presented.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and second. All in favor? Oh, wait, Supervisor
I
Moss?
believe that this agenda item, the way it's presented now, is fine for 95+% of what we're attempting to do in Mohave County. But unless it has a fee waiver for the very small events, and unless we recast the schedule to take into account the public good that is done by these food kitchens and food pantries and soup kitchens, I will have to vote no.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
can I respond to that? And I certainly see where you're coming from, Supervisor Moss, and possibly there should be some ability to move in decision-making on the fee schedule. And if you'd like at some other time to bring forth a different thought process or a different qualification of that, I would certainly entertain it. But for now, I think we should adopt this fee schedule and I believe Supervisor Moss has really the soup kitchens that certainly should have a second look.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second on this agenda to accept. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, that motion has carried. That ends the public hearing part. Now we're off to our regular agenda. Number 36, discussion and possible action, Mohave County Capital Improvement Projects List. Anyone have a say in this? Would you like to? Yes.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, this particular item stems from a discussion on whether the county should construct a medical examiner facility. And what was decided by the board 30 days ago was that, approximately 30 days ago, was to direct staff, the board decided to take a look at an entire building program and potential funding source for that building program, and the board directed staff to come back with a proposal for that program and a funding mechanism. So what we've done is OMB pulled together some numbers working with Public Works, and we came up with what staff believes is Mohave County's greatest needs and a building program and a recommended funding for that program. We intentionally didn't prioritize the buildings that were listed here because we believe that was a decision by the board. The board has flexibility to either do all, some, or none of this proposal. The board also has flexibility to subtract from it or add to it. One of the things that key points for this building proposal is that the board would need to dedicate approximately $1.5 million each year from funding, a dedicated funding source to augment the quarter-cent sales tax. The quarter-cent sales tax, there's a history that was provided with this document that we presented to the board that talks about the quarter-cent sales tax sunsetting in 2019. What we believe is by augmenting that quarter-cent sales tax with $1.5 million per year, we believe will provide the funding source for the list of buildings that are being proposed. We also believe that after the buildings are constructed, one of the concerns that the board had previously that a funding source for operation, continued operation and maintenance of those buildings needed to be provided, and this $1.5 million dedicated fund by the board would provide that funding force for ongoing maintenance and operation and replacement funds for the buildings. The other thing about this proposal is there's tremendous flexibility on those years that for whatever reason the board doesn't have the ability to fund the $1.5 million. You would subtract and lessen or reduce the scope of our proposed building plan, and that could certainly be done, or extend plan past 2020. Anyway, we presented this as staff's best guess for board consideration. Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair, the question I have for Mr. Hendricks would be, what is the proposal if we don't do if we just use the quarter-cent sales tax, which we have? What do we have? What can we do?
What we presented in this, Madam Chairman and Supervisor Johnson, what we presented in this paper was there were two main remaining areas that were proposed to be funded by the quarter-cent sales tax when it was enacted, and two main areas that were included in that resolution, and those areas were that haven't been constructed yet. And those areas were a Law and Justice Center and 2 sheriff substations. So those buildings remain incomplete as of this date. And there was some question on why that happened. The reason that happened was there was a unanimous vote by the board to construct the jail facility. And that took a considerable amount of funding away from with the quarter-cent sales tax. What we've also stated that is if those 2 buildings, or if the original proposal was to be modified in any way, that would take unanimous vote of the board. But obviously, if we did move forward with the quarter-cent sales tax, there's insufficient monies to construct both even the reduced scope Law and Justice Center and the 2 sheriff substations. That's what I believe. So, you know, those projects could continue to be prioritized. However, logic shows that we have sufficient monies to construct a Law and Justice Center or not. If you use the monies for anything else, we probably wouldn't be able to fund the Law and Justice Center.
Madam Chair, I understand what you're saying about the original agreement on the quarter-cent sales tax, but we've deviated from that plan all the way through. The senior center in Lake Havasu wasn't part of it. And like you said, the jail wasn't part of it. The justice centers weren't part of it. Development services, probation, Division 7 court, none of those were enlisted in the 5 projects that we had originally done. We're talking about a Law and Justice Center now. This isn't the same concept that we had before. The original idea, anybody who was here can correct me, was the sheriff's station, the Superior Court, the Justice Court, county attorneys, legal defenders, probation, constables, all those people were to be together at that time. And now we're looking at what you've put in front of us is 18 to 25 million for Superior Court only.
Madam Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, a lot of those projects that you mentioned were done by unanimous vote, but I concede that not all of them were done by unanimous vote. Also, it should be noted that the quarter-cent sales tax building fund has already been augmented by other funds, such as general fund monies or other district funds in the past, I believe by a tune of about $10 million. So it's not a pure fund. What staff did recommend in our report to you, for simplicity or to try to comply with the original intent of the resolution, was if you are going to move forward, and that's all I have control over recommending today, if you are going to move forward with the quarter-cent sales tax, you do so, if you're going to modify that resolution, you do so by unanimous vote. Also listed some other conditions that staff would recommend in moving forward. So staff's recommendation would be to try to comply with that original intent from this day forward. I couldn't do anything else.
But the Law and Justice Center, excuse me, Supervisor Watson, is now a Superior Court building only. It's not a Law and Justice Center.
I think we have.
The original, I'm sorry, the original intent of the, and I'd rather address this myself.
Oh, okay.
The original intent of the Law and Justice Center was an expanded facility to include the county attorney's office, the PDO, the probation department, so forth and so on. It could be argued that the scope has changed considerably. However, we are looking at courthouse facilities for the JPs in this building. We're looking at some multiple uses. So whether it's meets the intent of the original resolution, I think it's still a Law and Justice Center. I think the focus of the courts has changed to where the concept of a totally centralized court facility is not what's being proposed today. As you know, we've had votes from the board to expand Bullhead City. We've had, and I think that was by unanimous vote. We've had votes by the board, and I don't believe we use the quarter-cent sales tax for the Havasu facility, but to expand the facility down there. So the actual practical concept that the courts have for what they want to provide for Mohave County citizens has certainly changed, but I don't believe we necessarily need to stop calling what they're proposing here as not being a Law and Justice Center.
But I mean, what I guess I'm getting at it, the main focus of this will be Superior Courts, and if we can jam somebody else in. The original idea, and you might know, or you might have somebody from Public Works here that knows, how many buildings do we have in the city of Kingman that we lease or own? Over 20-some buildings? Yeah.
Johnson, I don't have that.
Right. We have a tremendous amount of buildings, and what we're trying to do, at least the original idea, and I think over the time, is to consolidate it so the person that comes to the county building you know, like if you go to court, you never know if you're going to, you know, you just get a ticket or whatever else. You don't know if you're Superior Court, Justice Court, City Court. But it would be nice to have probation, the county attorneys, because right now where the county attorneys are at, I mean, they should be in this building, but they stayed in their old building because it's so convenient to the court, so they can go back and forth. And so if we build something, we should try to make it where everybody who serves that function is in the same building. That's my thought, where we have now, where we're scattered all over the county. That's the only thing I had. I'm sorry, Supervisor Watson.
No, that's a great thought, and thank you. I didn't really mean to interrupt. I think the obvious importance of this item should certainly have the influence of the person that will be coming on to represent District 4. And so that's why today I'd like to make a motion at least to table this item to the next meeting for the new supervisor over District 4 can have some input.
Okay.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
If I could add something.
Yes.
Just for clarity, the public's sake, before we vote on it, as I'm reading this backup between the $1.5 million per year of general fund money and the sales tax revenues, we could have upwards of $36 million available to us for a variety of these building projects. Am I right about that, County Administrator Hendricks?
Madam Chairman, Supervisor Moss, that's correct.
Okay. That's the only thing I wanted to add to make sure it was clear that between the sales tax money and prudent budgeting, there's no need to raise any taxes to accomplish these building objectives.
Okay. We had a couple of people signed up, but, you know, since we're going to table this, we'll come back. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Number 37, discussion and possible action, review and consideration of applications received to date for the position of clerk of the board. We have this starred for executive session, and so I'm going to adjourn to executive session right now.
Jenny, will they transfer me into the room?
item 4.
I've got a brief lull in my board meeting. They're going to patch me back over in there. We're doing.
We're back. We're back in session. Oh, we're all back. Okay. All right. So on item number 37.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to keep the position open.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number, well, you know what, before we do that, I've had a request to move item number 42 up till now, and that would be discussion and possible action to approve the settlement. Do I have to get to approve that to move it, or just move it on my own? I can just move it, right?
Just move it.
Okay. Discussion and possible action, approve the settlement negotiated by Assistant Attorney General Kenneth Love in the consolidated property tax case of Transwestern Pipeline Company versus Ador, Mohave County, et al., TX 2010-000067-3.30. Discussion and possible action. One second. I have a type glitch. Okay, that was it. So it's the consolidated property tax case of Transwestern Pipeline Company versus Ador.
Madam Chair, do we have the final numbers on that?
Madam Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, Lori Milkey's here to give you information regarding this item.
Do we get the final numbers? I mean, before
I don't
that?
believe we have the final numbers yet.
We do not have the final numbers from ADOR yet. We're still waiting for them. That's the Arizona Department of Revenue. The approximate numbers, which are very close to what we will expect to see, is that for 2010, we're looking at a refund of $584,857. For 2011, we're looking at $290,000 and $450. For 2012, we're looking at $594,062. And that is, those numbers are without interest and fees added in, so they will be slightly larger numbers. What we're looking for from the Department of Arizona Revenue is exact numbers and how those numbers will translate to each of our districts. Mohave County is less impacted itself than the districts will be. In particular, the school districts and the fire districts are going to be fairly hard hit by this. So we're looking for the specific numbers from ADOR that we should have within the next week or two.
Madam Chair, if I may, then do you need an answer from us today to say settle?
Yes.
And you need us to put a cap saying it not to exceed X amount of dollars?
The overall dollar figure is set as far as all 7 counties that are involved. So that dollar figure is what you would be approving. How it actually impacts Mohave County is the piece that we are not clear on yet.
All right. Do we need to, as a board, because on we're only, what, 21% of the refund?
18.5%.
18 point, well, yeah, because we don't have all the special districts. So do we need to say that's all we're going to cover, is the 18%, and let the other entities know that they got to pony up their money?
Just to be clear, my understanding is that 18.5 is Mohave County's piece of the overall settlement. How that trickles down to the districts has not been determined yet.
Right, but we're sitting here as Mohave County Board of Supervisors settling a tax case when we're only, and I'll go back to my other figure, like 21% of it's our money.
A big chunk of it is the districts, but that is the way these tax cases go. When we're represented by the Attorney General's office, which we are in this case, then we look to them to cover any of the costs of the case itself, such as attorney's fees. But it boils down to us bearing the cost just as the districts bear the cost of actually refunding the taxes. I don't know if I've answered your question.
I guess what I'm saying, just to give an idea, if say the amount owed is $1,000, we pay $210 about is our portion. The schools, because in whichever district they happen to be, will pay, well, it's over 50% of that.
That's correct.
And anybody else, so we're here today we're settling a case on our part's 20%, but if we're going to pay, obviously it's best to pay it all up front. Some of these districts might not have the money.
That's correct. And there is in statute a method where they can take, I believe, up to 2 years to budget for it. And that's why this board, when I first started doing tax cases, told me that we need to advise our districts when a case like this is coming down the pike so that they can hopefully budget for this type of problem.
Right, because especially if they go the 2 years, they still have interest and everything
Interest,
accrues.
exactly.
And penalties accrue. So at what point would the board decide upon, we have a window to say, hey, we want to pay it all up front right now or not?
The board can do that right now. And how the districts pay for it is up to their budgeting process.
Do we settle just on our portion, or we settle and say we're paying the whole thing and we're taking out of there?
We pay the
else's?
whole thing. And then work it out with the districts how they pay.
Have the districts been informed about this while they go through their budget process?
They were informed, I believe, in either August or September of last year that this was coming down the pike, and that actually, I believe at that time we thought it was going to be even more than what we've actually are looking at settling for. So they were advised. What they've done with it, I can't tell you.
Right.
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion that we go with the recommendation of the county attorney's office and that the board settles up to save the taxpayers interest and penalties in the future.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, we are back to our agenda item number 38, discussion and possible action, setting the salaries for the 5 constables for the 4-year period beginning January 1st, 2015.
Motion for discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're going to discuss. I see we have a couple of our constables here.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Supervisors, County Administrators. My name's Mike Cobb. I'm Mohave County Constable. I represent the Kingman Precinct. Up here with me is Mike Hamilton. He represents Bullhead City Precinct. We're here talking for the lower 4 constables, not for the constable from the Colorado City area. Every 4 years, election comes around. By state statute, we're supposed to set the salary schedule during the June board meeting. I'm sure you're all aware of what our jobs are. We're an individual person that takes care of a large area. We are law enforcement. Our general job is serving process out of justice court. We also can serve for the general public. That's one way that we can bring in some revenue to the county to help offset our costs. But overall, the stuff that we do is generally free, and it falls underneath the court system, which is not a money generator for the county. During our jobs, when we're doing the process, we go out and we physically evict people out of houses and we seize property. Very dangerous jobs. We do these jobs. We can do it at any hour of any day of the week, of any day of the month. We're not a 9-to-5 office, Monday through Friday. Like I said, we're elected officials. We're the lowest paid elected officials in the county. Currently, the next one above us is $63,800. All salaries are mandated by the state. This current year, the legislature changed the salary range. It was $48,000 to $61,000. It has been changed and signed into law by the governor to change that from $48,000 to $67,000. We're here today to ask to be brought up to the same salary as the other lower elected officials, which is $63,800. But that's up to the supervisors to decide what they want to do.
The other lower elected officials are sitting at this table, Mr.
I know. And you guys can't ask for a salary for 2 more years, which is on another election cycle.
That is correct, and I think I'd be embarrassed to ask for an increase in this economy. Please, go ahead.
That was it. I'm throwing it out to you guys. We're here to answer any questions, or?
Do we have a motion for discussion?
Yes.
I met with both Mikes, and certainly they do need an increase in their salaries. And what we had talked about was similar to the salary increase that the employees of Mohave County received last year, and that was 2.5%, of which I was in favor of and continue to be in favor of 2.5% increase to their current salary. But I believe you have another issue that you would like to speak.
Yeah. Thank you. And I too have met with, you can stay there if you want, with the constables, and I think the 2.5% was fair. And I also, we've been discussing an issue that's been going on for years, predating when I was on the board, and that has to do with a constable up in Moccasin.
North Canyon.
In North
Canyon Justice
North
Court.
Canyon, and who apparently we never hear from. We never get reports. He doesn't go to trainings, basically does nothing. And his salary is set at $11,500. So I thought perhaps we could take that salary and put it down to a minimal amount, maybe round it off to 1,150. Should somebody want to take that job? If he hasn't done anything in several years, what that says to me is there's really no job up there. And take that 10,000 and then divide it up into the constables down here who actually do work. So that was my proposal. And
If I could, Supervisor, Chairman, I agree that the situation in the North Canyon Justice Court constable area up there does need to be looked at. But there is an election coming up, and what I would like to make sure is that we have the flexibility in whatever action we take today, is if there is someone else elected to that position, that we confer with Judge Brown in the area after the election to see of the requirement and need for security in that jurisdiction. So I'd be open to modifying the salary until after the, at least till after the election, or as long as at some point in time we get an opportunity to readdress it.
okay, but we have to set this before the election, correct?
I believe we need to set it at this June
This meeting.
timeframe.
Right.
Can I ask a question, Madam Chair?
Yes, Supervisor Moss.
This is to County Attorney Ekstrom. Do we have the authority to make the constable salary conditioned upon meeting certain criteria, such as all state required training, reporting, etc., as a condition to receiving the salary?
Madam Chairman, Supervisor Moss, that's not contemplated in the statute.
Okay. Supervisor Johnson?
Yes, I'd like to, they brought up some interesting points about revenues that are generated. Have we done any kind of OMB, Operation Budget Management, What kind of, I mean, because they charge what, you guys charge what, $250 a mile for serving things, and I know we bring that in, and what kind of numbers do we have on revenues we bring in?
Madam Chairman, Supervisors, I can go ahead and put the slides up. I'm Gene Hepler, the manager of OMB. What we looked at is in 2010, we have it broke out for the several years. What we look at is revenue, take for Cerebat, 12,157, and expenditures of 86,000. And that includes salary and office space and other, their gas and stuff, travel. And move up the next slide.
Oh, okay.
And 2012, again, what you see is the expenditures and revenue very low. But also what we have to be cautious with is the fact that not only do they do the writ and evictions and stuff, they do bailiff for the courts and security. So some of the constables do step in and work with the courts, the justice courts and stuff.
Madam Chair, may I ask Mr. Hepler a question?
Yes, please.
Because he mentioned, he touched upon something just then that I wanted to make sure was brought up. Is a lot of the constable's duties are not income producing. If they serve an order of protection, it's my understanding they have to serve that for free. If they are called into the court because of potential issues and they just want to have a guy with a badge and a gun standing in the room serving a pseudo-bailiff role, they could be there for minutes, they could be there all day. You just don't know, and that's also not revenue generating, but it does serve to keep the peace. The constables, I don't think, have ever been contemplated, is my understanding of the position, to be a for-profit enterprise that's revenue neutral. They're essentially a version of law enforcement, a small-town version of law enforcement that does have some ability to generate revenue, but they also are at the beck and call of the county's attorney's office when it comes to serving process, when it comes to serving order protections, when it comes to serving as a bailiff with the judge in the courtroom, all of which they have to provide, and there's no way to recoup those costs. And I believe that's the correct statement. Am I wrong, Mr. Hepler?
No, you are correct. And one of the things we have to look at, too, is the Sheriff's Department has a civil division that does process serving and does a lot of services. We looked at that in our study and report. And again, I guess what I want to call to your attention in looking at the North Canyon, the revenue is for 2013 was just under $400 and expenses of $14,500. And then what we look at is cost per service. When we look at just those providing services and outside services, in 2013, looking across, just picking out Kingman, it averages $174.81. Havasu is $579, and the North Canyon, because they serve very little, is $2,343.30. But again, that just covers those looking at the service and not looking at some of the other security and stuff that they do.
Okay, so as I understand it, the North Canyon Constable, I mean, the money is going out there, but we're not even, the court there is not even getting the services as the protection as they should get. So that's basically
my understanding.
That's our understanding. That's something we've been dealing with since I've gotten here, and apparently for years and years before, which is why, in lieu of anyone sort of coming in and talking about a need, I know Supervisor Watson just talked about it, and we'll talk about that, how we can help out that court there. That was why I suggested that we take that money instead of it just going to somebody who's doing nothing.
And this, Madam Chair, may I ask a question of Attorney Ekstrom again?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, Bill, I'm sorry to pester you, but I'm trying to come back at this bone that I want to gnaw. Can we, rather than making conditional salaries for constables, can we make a two-tier salary for constables? Do we say $1 per year for an elected constable without training and without reporting, and the full salary is set by the board for an elected constable that receives the training and does the reporting? Basically a two-tier system as opposed to a conditional system.
That's a good line of thought, Supervisor.
Supervisor Moss, that is a good line of thought, but the idea of setting the salaries is not connected at all to the nature or quality of the service they provide.
Right.
That's up to the taxpayers who ultimately elect these people. However, in this case, if you don't believe they're performing, you can lower their salary to almost nothing. That's your remedy.
That's what I'm looking at, is seeing if we as a board, we don't control any elected official, but we have the power of the purse. And I am very much in favor of raising the salaries for the Bullhead, Kingman, Lake Havasu City, and Surbat constables, but I want to use the power of our purse, the power of our ability to control salaries, to bring North Canyon into line and make them join the modern age and do their job, and receive the proper training and give the proper reports. And I'm trying to figure out a way that we can do that by saying, for example, the four constables I just named, Bullhead City, Kingman, Lake Havasu, and Surbat, if they receive the proper training and if they receive if they're elected, all constables get $1, but the constables of Bullhead, Kingman, Lake Havasu City, and Surbat, if they receive the proper training and do the proper reporting, will have a salary of $63,800 as they're requested. And the constable of North Canyon, if he receives the proper training or she receives the proper training and does the proper reporting, her salary would be increased to $11,055, which is basically the current salary that person is currently getting. So if we created a two-tier system, which encourages, with our financial muscle, because that's all we really have, them to do their job properly.
I think, Madam Chair, I think Attorney Ekstrom and the constables might jump in, but they have a range they're in. I don't believe we can drop them down to the dollar amount.
Well, yeah. The back data said for January 1st, 2015 going forward, we can drop them. This is what I'm reading.
Supervisor Moss, I'm not sure that we can. I believe it's in a...
You please, or do you want me to read it?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to call your attention to 11-424-01. It says in precincts with 6,820, I'm sorry, in precincts with 12,000 or more registered voters, but fewer than 16,000 registered voters, annual salary shall of not less than 36,100, nor more than 45,000. In precincts with 16,000 or more registered voters, annual salaries of not more than $48,294, nor more than $61,280. My point is that there is an upper limit and a lower limit that's established by statute. So I believe for the precinct up in the Moccasin area, Blue Canyon, that there is no lower limit there. That's why your proposal to drop it to $1,000, you would be able to do that. However, in the rest of the four precincts, I believe they're at the maximum registered voters, so there is a lower limit that you could actually drop them to.
I just want to, although I kind of understand the theory, I think it's a little bit, making it a little bit complicated. We have constables from the four cities, and they know what their job is, and during election time, there'll be people running against them, and if they're not doing their job and they don't have the training, I think it's up to them to let the people know. I mean, we can debate the job of the constable, but I believe that it is set by statute, and they are here, and that we should give them enough to do their jobs. And I want to thank them for the work that they do. And so that is why I came up with that arrangement. I think it's a fair one. It doesn't give them what actually requested, but I think it is a fair way to show anyway.
I have a question for
Yeah.
Mr. Exum. Mr. Exum, would it be possible then to make a motion today to increase the salaries of the current 4 in the major cities, metropolitan areas, and the one that we have in the Moccasin Court area? The one that we have in the Moccasin Court area, is it possible to make that salary $1 per year, then readdress that in November?
Madam Chairman, Supervisor Watts, you're saying it won't be in effect until after November.
It will be in yes, I understand, but can we readdress that salary after November?
The statute contemplates that those salaries will be set in June.
Right.
So that's when you have to do
So
it.
it's inflexible?
It's inflexible in
Right,
that
and
regard.
then if the people who are running, if they need to know what the salary is when they're running.
Thank you, Sue.
Madam Chair, I guess one of the problems I have, and this is nothing personal, but we have a clerk of the court who's gone 16 years without a pay raise. And I brought this up before when I voted against other pay raises. It has nothing to do with the constables, but we do have the salary they want to bring up. We're comparing ourselves to the assessor who has, $3.5 million budget, county attorney 3.8, clerk of the court 2 million. These people all have over millions of dollars and 20 to 124 people working for them. It's obviously up to the board, the majority of the board, what they want to do, but at this time, I can't support any pay raises as I have in the past.
Madam Chair, if I could,
Yes, please.
I'd like to make a motion that we raise the salaries of the Bullhead City Constable, the Kingman Constable, the Lake Havasu City Constable, and the Surmat Constable offices to $63,800, so they're on par with other elected officials, and that we do nothing in regards to the North Canyon Constable.
Is there a second?
I lack of a second.
There's no second on that motion, Supervisor Moss.
I'd like to make a
I
motion.
thought to take a shot. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to increase the salaries of the Kingman, Surbat, Bullhead City, and Lake Havasu City precincts by 2.5%, as with our previous increase from last year over employees, and 0 increase for the Northland Justice Court.
I'll second that.
Wait, I'm confused now. So we're going to keep the North County at, North Country, right, at 11.5?
It would remain at 11.5, but there would be no increase.
But there will be no increase, and it's 2.5% for the constables.
Correct.
And I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Okay.
And if you'll bear with me, I'd like to make a comment on that.
Go ahead.
Okay. The North Canyon, I like your idea, Madam Chair, of stripping the North Canyon Precinct Constable of their salary, essentially, and applying it to the other 4. The difficulty I have with it is, one, a process, because if they do get a new person in there who wants to do the job and does it well, as I understand it, it would be at least 2 years before we could do anything to make sure that the person who gets elected and who's responsible actually gets compensated for doing the work the current person should be doing and is not. So we're basically telling anyone who wants to be a responsible constable, don't bother to run because you're not going to get paid for it. And I don't want to discourage anyone who might be inclined to replace the current problem we have down there, or up there, excuse me.
We're going to have...
Madam Chair, even though I don't support this, I don't believe we can hold personalities in it. I believe we have to give them all 2.5% or nothing. And it wouldn't be 2 years, it'd be 4 years, because they're all running for office now, so it'd be 4 years before you could address that. And I understand what Supervisor Watson wants to do, but I think it's the person, and we're ultimately the ones who should be holding them accountable along with the Constable Association, or standards of ethics or whatever.
Okay, so the motion on the table is 2.5%, and that's it.
Except for the North.
Except for the North County, that gets no.
Is that okay? and that is legal.
Okay. Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I was in favor of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, number 39, discussion and possible action in keeping with statutory duty to fill the vacancy created by the death of District 4 Supervisor, appoint a qualified Republican resident of District 4 to fill the District 4 Supervisor position until a person is elected at the next regular general election to fill the remainder of the unexpired term. We are start to go into executive session for that, but before we do, there are a few people who want to speak, and I want to hear them before we go in. So we have Steve Robinson. Come on down.
Madam Chair, Supervisors, my name is Steve Robinson. I live at 3439 North Bowie Road in Golden Valley, Arizona, District 4. I'd say the heart of District 4. I wrote an editorial that was supposed to appear in yesterday's paper. It did. They cut my words from 740 to 330, which proves that I do take twice as many words to say what needs to be said. But in there, I pointed out the need to look at someone who is not a candidate. Every candidate has said the same thing, is yes, it would give them a benefit to be in that chair for the next 6 months. It is unfair to the voters of District 4 to appoint a candidate that would have that unfair advantage. I implore you, if there's a person, I know at least 2 people that have applied that are not candidates, Representative Doris Goodale, and I heard this morning that former Supervisor Pete Byers, who lives in our district, has also submitted his name. I don't care about a person's status as a representative or a liberal or a conservative. The issue is the principle of providing fair work within the board without giving an unfair advantage, and basically the 4 of you telling the board, the voters of District 4, who they should vote for in August. And I think that's the unfair thing. As far as the issue of Doris Goodale, that woman has gone through a lot. I have a sister who 4 years ago had a stroke. She barely survived. I know my sister's mind is as strong as anybody else in this room. She can handle the job just fine if she were in Doris's position. So I think Doris would be an adequate candidate, and we would not take into consideration her physical limitations. And that's all I have to say on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Bill Walker.
Good morning, Board, Chairman. I'm Bill Walker, and I live in District 4 at 3274 Packstring Lane, and I've lived in the Kingman area since 1971. I would like to have the 4-member Board of Supervisors to delay any action in appointing a person to fill the vacant position due to Mrs. Joy Brotherton's sudden death. I firmly believe the board's position should be entirely up to the voters of District 4 by the primary process and the general election in November. The present 4-member board can do in a very effective manner in carrying out the supervisor's functions for the next 5 months. Again, please allow the voters of District 4 to select the person who will represent them by the election process. I want to thank the board for allowing me to have these comments, and I will look forward to a successful conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do want to address that this, us appointing someone in the interim is mandated by the statute. It's
well,
not
I
something
understand. I understand how the statute says, but I am interested primarily in fairness to the people of District 4.
Thank you. Okay, and Mark Shaver?
The last item highlighted what I have to say about a plug-and-play person for the interim, someone who's ready to step right in and run with the ball. I mean, there's only a handful, or less than a handful of candidates who are actually, you could say, plug-and-play. You know, if we had a District 4 representative up here, she might have argued, or he might have argued for a 3.5 for the constables rather than a 2.5. That's neither here nor there. Right now, we do need someone who's ready for that, who's, you know, who fits the bill of a plug-and-play candidate, you know, ready to go at the jump. And what was said about Mrs. Joy Brotherton, I accept that. And what was said about Mr. Byers, I accept that. There is another candidate who works at a tier directly below you, who's familiar with pretty much all the communities within the District 4. Simply by the nature of his position and what he does. I'm trying not to endorse anyone or anything like that. I'm just trying to define the top 3 candidates that I would see that are plug and play. If you understand the concept of plug and play. Thank you. But we do need to be representative.
Thank you, Mr. Shaver. Is there anybody else? Okay, seeing none.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I may, before you adjourn to executive session, I believe one of these people that put in is not qualified to take the seat, and it's set by statute.
That's correct.
The legislature is not eligible, and it's in our Constitution. And eligibility of members of the legislature to other public offices, Section 5. No member of the legislature during the term for which he shall have been elected or appointed shall be eligible to hold any other office or be otherwise employed by the state of Arizona or any county or incorporated city or town thereof. This prohibition shall not extend to the office of school trustee nor to the employment as a teacher or instructor in the public school system. And the key in this phrase is during the term for which he shall have been elected or appointed. This is what prevents a legislator from resigning just to be appointed elsewhere. They were elected for a certain term, and that term has to expire before they can be appointed elsewhere. It doesn't matter if they leave. It is the length of the term itself that matters.
Thank you very much. Okay. Let's go into executive session. Okay. Supervisor Johnson, see. There he is. Okay. Back to order. Okay, and item 39. Do I have a motion?
I move that we appoint Gene Bishop to fill the balance until the next coming election of Supervisor Joey Brotherton's term until the voters can hold their election.
And I will second that. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's 2-2. And in this matter, the clerk of the board acts as a supervisor in casting the deciding vote.
If I have a question, Madam Chair. Are we going to go through each and every one of these, Bill? That's the way it is, just whoever, or is there any discussion on this? Or
you could have discussion if the chairman so desires.
Or are you going to put the clerk in the position every time to do this?
That's what the law requires. It's unfortunate, but.
Okay, so we have 2-2, and the vote of the clerk of the board.
My vote is yes.
Okay, 3-2. Gene Bishop is the interim supervisor representing District 4. Do you want to say a few words?
I would, please.
Or you just want to walk down the steps?
I just wanted to say a few words. Thank you very much for your vote of confidence. I just want to assure the board members that I accept your appointment. It's something that's in my heart. I want to do it for Joy. I want to do it for the citizens of Mohave County. I have no agenda. My plans, now that I've been appointed, once I get sworn in, is just to continue with Joy's work, try to finish some of her projects, and go on with the election. Let the District 4 citizens decide who the next supervisor will be in November. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Item number 40, discussion and possible action. Approve rescheduling the June 16th, 2014 Board of Supervisors meeting to June 23rd, 2014.
I'd like to make a motion to move the meeting to the June 23rd.
If I could, Supervisor Watson, if we're moving the meeting, can we make it the 25th? Because I will physically be back in town the evening of the 24th.
To the 25th?
In person on the 25th.
Yes.
I will not be here. This
All right,
Arizona Association of
Could
Counties
you,
meetings.
One of us has to. I think that maybe I should practice calling in, and so I'll just call in on the 23rd. That's not a problem.
Okay, so 23rd will be okay with you?
I have a telephone, and I do travel with it, so I'll be there.
Okay, very good then. So we do have a motion, and I didn't know if we had a second. Do we have a second?
I second.
I seconded it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Number 41, discussion and possible action to approve a special event liquor license for the Kingman Elks Father's Day, Flag Day ceremony and picnic to be held in Recreation Area 1 of the Wallapai Mountain Park. Event date June 15th, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we did item 42. Item 43, discussion and possible action, adoption of Board of Supervisor Resolution number 2014-070, abandoning that portion of Tennessee Road, 40 feet in width by 292 feet long, containing 0.27 acres, more or less, and further approve the abandonment to be processed and right-of-way purchased per Arizona Revised Statutes, Titles 28, Chapter 20, Article 8, at no cost to Mohave County, located in the Golden Valley area, District 4 of Mohave County, Arizona. Motion?
Motion for discussion.
Discuss?
Second.
Okay.
Is this related to that last road case that we dealt with the mountain and dividing the properties a few months ago? Where we had the feuding landowners about having access on the north side but not the south side, etc.?
Good morning, Madam Chair, Supervisor Moss. This item concerning the abandonment of Tennessee Road is not necessarily related to the board's consideration of the abandonment of Tom Reed Road. However, it is very near the vicinity of the Tom Reed Road location.
So it's not the same group of people who are still throwing rocks at one another?
Madam Chair, Supervisor Moss, I should point out that the applicant, which is Mr. Jeffrey Stoddard, did speak at the board meeting in opposition to the abandonment of Tom Reed Road when that particular application was presented.
And was he the same gentleman who announced that he was going to have a portion of this road abandoned by way of tit for tat at that same meeting? Because I do recall that statement being made by one of the speakers.
Madam Chair, Supervisor Moss, on reference to your statement, I do recall that that inference was made by Mr. Stoddard.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Madam Chair, if I can make a motion, I would move that we deny this item.
Okay. Do I have a second on that? Okay, I'm sorry. Lack of second.
It's a distressingly common occurrence, but I'll deal with it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do I have another motion? Okay.
Motion to approve.
Excuse me?
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second motion.
Okay, motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I oppose.
Okay, that carries. 44, discussion and possible action in the event that the June 16th, 2014 meeting is rescheduled, authorize the county administrator and procurement director to conduct the Arnold Plaza public auction June 16th, 2014 at 10 a.m. outside the Board of Supervisors meeting and bring the results back to the supervisors at the next scheduled meeting. Okay, do I have a motion? Okay, second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried, and this meeting's adjourned, and we will be having our budget workshop meeting here at, it's 11:30 now. What do you say? You want 15 minutes or a half hour?
Half hour.
Half hour, at noon. We'll be back here. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just call into the same number?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.